G'day guys, and welcome back to Supercoach Swordplay. We are excited because this is episode 4 of our Supercoach Swordplay GOAT series, where we sit down with previous winners, those people that have climbed the top of the mountain. And what a way to finish off, Janath. Today, we are talking with the 2024 winner. The last time we spoke to this bloke, he was coming off a very, very successful season. He started off back in the day playing some Dream Team, then some Fantasy, and then obviously made his way to Supercoach. His old man helped him with his initial team, Janath. You know, what a father's for. Must be a very, very solid bloke there, and must know his football as well to produce this great man here. Now, in his winning year, he consumed as much football as he could. I'm talking dual screens, TVs, laptops going. This man had the works. And I tell you what, I think that was the way to go because, as we said, he managed to take out the grand prize. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Joven May. Mate, thank you very, very much for joining us yet again. How have you been, my brother?
Oh, I've been excellent, DR. Pleasure to be back on the channel. Hello, Janath, as well, and all the viewers. Yeah, I've been very well. Just got back from a trip to Japan, actually, with a few of my mates from school. So riding a bit of a high at the moment, feeling good, and, yeah, excited for this podcast and an exciting time of Supercoach pre-season coming up shortly.
Nah, totally, Joven. It's a pleasure to have you on the channel. I know that when we were putting out the first couple of GOAT videos, you couldn't help yourself. You said, I want in on the action as well. And why not? Honestly, the last video we did with you did huge numbers, a team reveal indeed. So, Joven, we may be setting you a like goal at the end of this to try and get you to repeat the dose and come ahead with another team reveal on the channel. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's fine with me. One like, I'd be fine to do it. I don't mind sharing too many secrets. There's a lot of content out there anyway, so I wouldn't be giving away too much.
Sounds
straight
good,
off the
mate.
bat, one like. I'm going to give it a like myself.
Joven, I guess we should just jump straight into it then. With regards to sort of take us back to pre-2024. So as DR mentioned, your dad helped you set up your first side, but sort of have you ever come close to winning before 2024? What were some of your best ranks? When did you start playing? Give us a little bit of background information about your history before your success.
So yeah, I've been playing like Dream Team and Supercoach for a long time. Sort of like prior to 2024, like my highest season rank was actually in Fantasy. I got about 220th in 2022. So that was my best finish. And then been around inside the top 1% consistently for Supercoach, probably for the last maybe 4 years heading up to when I won. But yeah, never really cracking like the top 100 or anything before that. I was in the top 1,000 one year when they did they used to have the KFC sponsorship, and I got a bit of like free chicken and a drink bottle. So yeah, that was good.
Now, Joven, I do want to ask you, so you're talking 4 years in the top 1%. Had you set yourself that like little goal of like the top 1%, top 1K? And if so, did that mindset shift going in 2024 and you're like, I want to aim a bit higher?
Not really. I think if you set those sorts of goals for yourself, it's kind of hard because like you're always going to be, I guess 1%, top 1% is fine. But mostly I usually used to play for leagues. And then sort of like with always, a lot of the content I was consuming was more to do with like, ranks and, chasing hats or, top 1,000 finishes. So I guess that was always part of like my strategy. But yeah, I don't know. If you try and sort of feel like if you try and get the best rank you can, you're always going to be a little bit just disappointed. Like the chances of winning and even the chances of getting top 100, you need a lot to go right. So I guess it's sort of a bit more enjoyable if you have like lots of mini goals, like, trying to beat your mates and perform the best you can, I guess, is, usually what I strive for.
Sounds good, mate. Well, talking about that, what was your secret to success in 2024? Like, can you pinpoint it down to one or two things in particular?
You need a lot of luck. I think I think Blake touched on that in his podcast as well. But yeah, you definitely need luck. I feel like there's a lot of coaches that are all around a pretty similar skill level. Definitely coaches that are more skilled than me out there. So you need things to go right, but also just like, playing aggressively. I played quite aggressively, but off the back of my luck. Like, if you get a little bit of a advantage on the competition, a few picks go right, you avoid some bullets, and then you play more aggressively. I think just one thing leads to another, and then you can really start to push up the ranks and get your team upgrading quickly. That was what really helped me in my winning year. My upgrade cadence was quite good. Like, I got a completed side a lot earlier than everyone else, and that was off the back of targeting underpriced premiums throughout the year, getting good money makers in mid prices and rookies. So it's nothing revolutionary, but yeah, you just play your cards right, and you never know what can happen.
We'll chat a lot more about your in-season management coming up shortly, Joven. The last question which I have in this section, I guess it's the biggest question here. Take us through that, let's say the last week. So the last week off the 2024 season, did you know you had it in the bag? Did you have any moves that you had to make in terms of captaincy, vice captain? Sort of give us the best anecdotal experience of how that last week was for you.
To be honest, I don't love reliving the last week. To be honest, it was very stressful. I was coming in, I was behind in the last week, and I was second. I had dropped to fourth a few weeks before, and then there was a little bit of injury carnage. I think in the last week, Harry Sheasel didn't play, and I had a trade up my sleeve, and a lot of the other, none of the other coaches had a trade, which is common theme in these podcasts. And so I knew I was going to have one extra player than Nathan, who was in first, who had been around the mark for most of the season. And so I was about, I can't remember exactly now, maybe 80 points behind or so. Might have been more than that, but with an extra player. And so set up a bit of a spreadsheet, tracking the uniques. We only had maybe 6 unique players between us. And throughout the weekend, it was pretty stressful. Like, I avoided a Dacos VC on the Thursday or Friday night, and he went like 180. Yeah. And obviously I couldn't see what Nathan's captaincy was. So we were planning that he'd VC'd Dacos. So we're like, oh, geez, he's got a big captain score already. And then it was pretty even all the way through. A couple of the Brisbane Lions boys did me solid on the Saturday night. Lockie Neal and Dunkley were both massive. So shout out to those Lions boys. And then on the Sunday, it was still like really close, factoring in we assumed that he had Dacos as the captaincy score. And then it came down to the last game. He had a lot of players playing in Fremantle versus Port Adelaide. I just had Jordan Clark. It was like shifting like quarter to quarter. I'd get on top and then he'd get on top. And it was like, it was pretty sickening watch. Like, Jordan Clark was doing nothing. And then in the last quarter, like, Jordan Clark started going bananas. And like, he had one run where he like ran down the sideline and got a couple of touches. And at the end of the game, we had it, can't even remember. We're like doing the sums. I think when the scoring finished, I'd won by like a point, and that was like before scaling. And then like scaling came through, and I'd won by like, I don't know, maybe 20 points or something. And then in the end, when lockout lifted, he didn't even have Dacos as vice captain, so I won by like 80 points. But it was really stressful, that, like, because you can't, it's like you had to assume that he had the best possible captain.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty stressful weekend, but big relief when we worked out, the scaling had been done. I was on Xbox with one of my mates who's super into Supercoach and fantasy as well. I bounce ideas off, and he'd like seen that scaling had gone through, and he just said like, "Oh, you've won," and that was a pretty amazing feeling.
What did you do to celebrate, mate? What did you actually do? Was there a nudie run down the street? Was there? I do a few laps of the house when one of my players does something good on the field. Bit of a tap on the ball. What did you do, mate? How did you celebrate?
No, it was pretty low key, to be honest. Like, I just kept playing Xbox for a bit, and my parents were in the other room. I was just sort of sitting in the moment, and then because I didn't want to get him excited because you never know until lockout, and then I sort of came out once lockout happened, and I was like, yeah, I've won, and then a few of my mates came around, and there's. I sort of went outside and just let out a big cheer. I was pretty excited, a lot of relief as well that it was finally over. But yeah, very excited. I was riding a bit of a high. I reckon the few days afterwards were better. Just sort of soaking it all in, and yeah, it was a pretty amazing feeling.
Now, when I tell my parents that I'm playing Supercoach, and I tell them, I'm coming close, they're like, "What's even the point of this?" Did your parents know what was on the line there, Joven? When you told them 50K and all that?
Oh yeah, well I've been a passionate fantasy sports player for a while, so they know that it's big money on the line. But yeah, it was sort of I didn't really tell them until I'd been in the top 10 for a little while, and I was sort of coming because things can happen, and I've been up the top in Big Bash Supercoach before and then fallen off, so I was like, oh, I don't want the pressure on me. And then, yeah, I was sort of once you get to round 16 or 17 and you're still in the hunt. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing real well in Supercoach. And then they started getting all around it. And yeah, it was a bit annoying because a lot of people found out and they kept asking me questions about it. But I guess, it wasn't too bad.
Awesome.
That is unbelievable. He's playing the Xbox. One Supercoach. Yeah. Shit, I got killed, bugger. Yeah, just keep on going. That's amazing, mate. Congratulations. What an experience. What a mixture of emotions as well, particularly given the fact it was so close. I know there's been some other winners where they've been pretty confident ahead of time. But like yourself and Blake, came from behind in that last week. But you do say luck. However, you had that extra trade, which we've already said it, has been a common theme with every single winner that we have had on the series. So that was brilliant, mate, recapping that. Janath, anything else before we move on and fast forward to the 2025 season?
No, I reckon it's a perfect segue in talking about how Blake backed it up. Was there a bit of the premiership hangover, or did Joven, aim to go back-to-back?
Well, Joven, tell us, how did you go, mate? How was your ranking last year? And give us an overall summary of your season, mate.
Yeah, it was only 14,770 spots worse than my rank from the year before, which not too far off the mark. The only way was down, so looking forward to a bit of improvement this year on the way back up. I guess I sort of heading into last preseason, I wasn't really feeling pressure externally. I maybe put a little bit more pressure on myself, but I don't think I really changed the way that I play very much. I think it was sort of just a bit of equivalent exchange. I had a lot of things go my way the year before, and then perhaps the 50-50 decisions that I made, and also a bit of luck involved probably went the other way last year. So yeah, I was actually not really that disappointed in my year, even though the rank obviously wasn't as high as I would have liked, but I still had a lot of fun playing. And yeah, there was, as I said, there was only one way to go, which was down, unless I pulled a Selby. So yeah, no, a lot of learnings, a lot of learnings to be had out of the year. So hoping to bounce back this year, bigger and better.
It's a brilliant attitude. And we're talking about this is someone that's won the whole thing last year, and then he's still taking learnings the year after. And that's because the game's continually evolving. And it is interesting, mate, because I was going to ask you if you did majorly change things up in regards to your strategy. From what you've just said, did you pretty much play things the same as what you did the year before? There were no major switch ups?
Yeah, I think I took a pretty similar approach and tried to copy my own formula a bit, which maybe that was
worked.
Yeah, well, maybe I was actually a bit too much like the previous year. I could have been a little bit more fluid in terms of, and that maybe hurt me a little bit, which is, I guess a learning that I'll take into this year. I know one thing that happened last year is I messed around with my rucks a lot. A lot of people went to Gorn, and I never got on Gorn because I was off him the whole preseason sort of. And then the Geelong Hurricane game happened, and then he ended up he was playing a ruckless Geelong. He was playing no GWS ruckman or something, and I can't remember exactly, but a lot of people jumped on Gorn, and I was sort of off him the whole preseason and then didn't get on him. And that sort of hurt me because I was like, oh, the previous year, like I went value in the rucks. I'll just do that again. But he was obviously the right pick. And I had like Matt Flynn, and then like he got dropped, and I went to Luke Jackson, and then he got injured. And then I went to Kieran Briggs, and he got injured. And then I don't even know who I ended up with in the end. So that was a bit of a disaster. But even still, like Matt Flynn, he scored quite well. I was happy with the process of like, probably could have seen that his job security wasn't that good, but I was happy to take a risk at that price. And then I got on Jackson, who was quite a good pick, but he just got injured. So yeah, there was a lot of things that went differently, but yeah, it was sort of, similar sort of mindset. And another thing is that this is sort of like year dependent, which is something you can't really control, but my upgrade cadence was still pretty good at the start of last year. I traded aggressively and I was able to get rookies off field quite quickly. But what hurt me was that the rookies were actually scoring quite well. Like there was a few rookies that like Zach Reed hung around for a long time, and I traded him out and got him up to a semi-premium, and then he started dropping 100. He turned into a premium until he got injured, which was, that doesn't happen every year. And like Levi Ashcroft was still really good. There was a few guys that came in. Obviously McCarthy came in, and he was a rookie option that was putting up, scores not too far off premium. So that just happens sometimes. There'll be years where the rookies hit a wall and plateau earlier than others, and that'll benefit the coaches that get their rookies off field. And then other years, rookies will hang on and pop a few scores and make extra cash. And then, it just it swings and roundabouts in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. We say hindsight is a wonderful thing, mate, as well. So it seems like, maybe a couple of those rookies moved on a little bit too early and they ended up outperforming their current price, as well as the rucks. You did mention, I quickly want to touch on this, mate. You did mention about not stuffing around in the rucks, and that's something that I've been extremely guilty of in previous years myself. And right at the start of this year, I said, I'm not going to stuff around. I'm locking in two of the big boys. And then, of course, there's chatter about the new rules and how the ruck scoring is going to be affected. And I'm absolutely pulling my hair out at the moment. So I know we're still back in 2025 at the moment, but quickly, if we look to 2026 with this ruck situation, have you got an idea in mind at the moment what you're thinking about doing structure-wise? Are you learning from the lesson, as you just said, not going to stuff in there and the ruck's going to lock two big boys in? Or with the new rules, have you still got question marks on whether or not it's actually worth paying up for one, let alone two of the big boys this year? What are your thoughts, mate?
Well, I think this is part of the really fun thing about Supercoach, and especially with these new rules. I think it's really interesting because, as you say, at the end of last year, I would have said, set and forget's the way to go. But I actually think all rucks take a bit of a hit this year, and I think especially stoppage-based rucks. A lot of rucks as a position score most of their points from stoppage situations. And I think there's going to be less stoppages and like less repeat stoppages. And it's going to be harder for ruckmen to get to all the stoppages around the ground. They're not waiting for them to ball it up anymore. There's no crossing the center line, so it favors jumping rucks as well, which is another factor. I think that, transition-based rucks, which is sort of like, I think it may lend to someone like Tim English being quite good. Luke Jackson, if he's playing ruck, he'll be quite effective. Guys like Sherry may struggle a bit to adjust at the start of the year, but then again, we don't know. We haven't seen it, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But it's exciting that, I guess we have these new rules, and it's a different piece of the puzzle to fit in. I'm sort of thinking at the moment, I don't want to pay up for rucks with all the uncertainty, which is, I guess a bit of a different strategy to what I would have had pre the rule changes. But I can see a bit of natural, like built-in regression to all of these guys. Maybe like English and Jackson hold, but I'm not even that confident in that. So maybe it is going for like a, Briggs is underpriced, Vicentini's underpriced, Lachlan McAndrew at Adelaide is he's apparently got the number one ruck role. Even like, I know he's not a ruckman, but Lachlan Blackiston in defence for Essendon, he's a jumping ruckman. So you just never know with these guys. A lot of names floating around, I guess, until we see it in the preseason, and then obviously opening round is going to change a lot as well. But yeah, I guess it's a lot to play out, and yeah, at the moment I'm probably leaning away from paying up in the rucks, but I guess we'll just see how it shakes out.
Some of those names that you mentioned, Joven. That's what I'm saying. Some of the names that you were mentioning, if they're my ruck 1 and 2, I'm praying every single week that some of the big boys don't score well. But it's such a different mindset. I think this is the year that we're not going to, that they're all going to fall at some point. And if you can get on early and you're on the cheap ones, whilst the big ones are coming down, you'll see convergence at some point. You're already a step ahead of much of the competition. So it could really work.
Yeah, I think 100%. I'd be pretty brazen as well. And I'd caution against starting 2 of those guys. If my R1 and R2 were like Briggs and Vicentini, I wouldn't be very confident. But they're names, and maybe it does work out. There was a year where English and Marshall, they were both sort of priced at 90. I can't remember exactly, but they were both underpriced rucks, and they weren't fully proven premiums yet. And then they went on to be the number 1 and 2 rucks, and that they were awesome picks. So I guess, yeah, you just got to wait and see. But yeah, I'd probably prefer to have one of those other rucks that are sort of like an English Jackson, Grundy, a bit more proven, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
This man knows his football, Janath. Look at the reasoning and decision-making behind his ruck selections. Now, nothing's locked in, but you're prepared, mate. You're prepared for these practice matches, for opening rounds. Have a bit of a look there. And you know what you're looking for in a ruck as much as we can without, as you said, having any data and seeing this before. So absolutely love that, mate. What a man. And tell you what, Janath, as I've been listening to Joven, he's reminding me I'm getting some Dyson Heppel vibes, and why I say this, I know Heps is a wonderful bloke. He's a ripping bloke, laid back. He's modest, Joven was talking about, there's better coaches out there than me. Just a humble man. He's excited about these new rules. He's not stressing and getting grumpy over them like other people. I think the only difference between Joven and Dyson is the fact that Dyson's never won anything, unfortunately. So, sorry, Dice. But there's a real compliment to you, Joven, because I'm a big fan of Dyson Heppel, although I just did give him a bit of a drive-by there.
How long did it take you to make that one up, mate?
Look, I'd been writing it down for a little while, mate. We've been running for about 20-odd minutes here, and I thought there's some absolute gold there. I'll just give him a little drive-by, but I do love the man. But look, I think that's probably it for 2025. We did jump into a bit of 2026, sorry, Janath, but needed to know this man's opinion on the ruck rules, because I am stressing over these. I'm not too excited like Joven is.
But let's talk about 2026 and a bit of the preparation research side of things, Joan, because I know that you're much for the eye test. You watch a lot of games, you consume a lot of content in that way. So if you had to put sort of percentages to these 3 categories, that is data, eye test, and knowledge, in terms of your starting team, what do you really focus on practice matches or with historical data?
I don't know about certain percentages, but I guess I can just talk through what I do take out of those. So data, I guess data is very broad in terms of what I'm looking at. It's, you can use data to determine roles. So I guess center bounce percentage is obviously, it's just ball up percentage this year, no more center bounce. But yeah, that's obviously a one that lots of people in the community have used for a long time, and it's certainly indicative of scoring potential. Kick-ins is one for defenders. Even simple stats like how many marks someone gets. One I'm interested this year that's been floating around on Twitter, I've seen a little bit, is handball receives. I reckon with the new standing rule and just favouring outside running players, handball receives, players that get a lot of handball receives could be benefiting this year. As I said, transition points from transition versus points from stoppage. There's been a bit of buzz in the fantasy community this preseason about market share percentage. So, how much of a team's points does a player score, and then how many points does a team score in total? It's obviously, if you're in a high scoring team, you need less of a market share to score more points, which is something that influences scoring. So yeah, those are the main things with data. I don't really look too much into like scoring in preseason games. I guess it's like a little bit of validation, but when I like to watch the players and see what they're doing, see how they're moving, see where they're running, what role I guess you use a little bit of data to back up what you're seeing in terms of the role and, if they're getting time on ground and whatever. But yeah, in the preseason games, I like to watch them, see how they're sort of playing. And then knowledge, I guess, you're just trying to take in as much as you can and filter out. I guess the main thing in preseason is like you shouldn't really rule anyone out to start the preseason. And then as you go, you sort of just filter through and start to work out, okay, these guys maybe aren't getting a bit of the roles. Everyone's training the house down at some point in preseason. Then we get closer to the start of the regular season. And it turns out you can't actually have 8 midfielders in one team. You need an A and a B side at training. So guys start going back to the flanks and forward pockets and wings. And, I'm not that interested in picking those positions in fantasy. So, we'll just work our way through there. And that's sort of how I attack the preseason in terms of trying to get all the knowledge I can for my team.
It's very subtle, something that you mentioned there, Joven, that you like to keep an open net and narrow it down. I feel like a lot of coaches heading into preseason have a narrow net and widen out when they see the practice matches. And it's a very subtle mindset thing that I think makes a lot of sense, because you want red flags to caution you against players as opposed to being thrown off, or like as opposed to seeing something that you like that you never really paid attention to before. And that's how I feel like you do a really good job of avoiding traps, is you're not picking a player that you was never on your radar, because theoretically everyone is on your radar. You're just filtering out going from there. Is that correct, Joven?
Yeah, I guess I sort of take that mentality, and I just try and be flexible. And it's worked for me in the past, I guess, and especially with the opening round now. I don't think you want to lock in too much of your team until after, my team changes a lot from the last 2 years, from after opening round to the start of round 1. Like I make a lot of changes in that week based on, very real data that actually influences player price movements and scoring and real roles. So I guess, you don't want to be too rigid in your preparation, and just keep an open mind in terms of what you're looking for. And you never know, things change super quickly in the AFL landscape. So, and we see it in season as well. Like there's a lot of dudes that in the season, we didn't consider them at all in preseason, and then they have a sudden role change, and then they're in your team. So there's no reason that can't happen in the preseason as well. So I just sort of try and take that mindset when I'm watching the games and gaining insight.
Awesome. And talking about insights, how do you balance the qualitative insights of like play interviews or coach comments with the quantitative metrics, like we talk about with historical stats, data, that sort of thing?
It's a sort of a bit of like a balancing act, I guess. And there's a lot of rubbish that gets thrown out there, and it's quite hard to trust. Like, I'm a Geelong fan, so I don't really trust anything that Chris Scott says, or, a lot of the coaches are pretty foxy with how they attack things, and, even injury reporting can be interesting. So probably leaning more on data, but certainly does play a part. And if teammates are saying, this guy is tearing up the track and he's going to play midfield, he's best on in every match sim, that certainly has to weigh into your calculations, because there is merit in all of that. It's just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and that's what makes it so fun, I think, is that there's so many different options, and you're getting so much information, and then it's trying to work out what's real and what's not, and what's actually the best possible combination, which you're never going to find, but you can get pretty close.
Yeah. Awesome. And taking back to the start of 2024 for you, do you feel like there was an underrated aspect of a player's preparation, such as injury history, role changes, fixture difficulty? Let's talk about that last part there, fixture difficulty. Do you pay much attention to fixtures when you're picking your premiums to start a season?
A little bit. I would rather have, player with a good early run than not, because I guess that means you get like value compared to the other players in the competition that don't pick them. So, for example, like the Zach Butters, maybe I don't see that there's a lot of value in his starting price, like season long. I don't know if he's going to average a lot more than what he's priced at. But if I'm getting him when other players don't have him, because everyone's probably going to end up with him at some point, he's going to be a top 8 mid. If I'm getting him for a run where he can go at 130 plus, and he's a captain option, and the fixture lends to him having that opportunity, I sort of view that as upside, which is what I'm targeting in all of my players.
Yeah, and I guess the last section in this last question in this section here, mate, is you talked a lot at the start of the podcast about how much content is out there. Do you like to listen to sort of community input like forums, podcasts to sort of change your position on players, or like how do you balance outside noise with what you're thinking internally?
No, I consume a lot of content, really. Like I'll just like go on a walk and put on a podcast, and that's pretty easy for me to just listen to. I think it's, there's so many people that are thinking about fantasy and Supercoach, and I think it'd be a bit naive and arrogant to think that like I know everything, and I'm very informed from other people's opinions. And what makes a good coach, I think, is learning from others, and people seeing the game differently, and then putting it through your own lens. But I do listen and consume a lot of content through Twitter and podcasts and all of that.
Learning. We can always learn, can't we, Dia?
Absolutely. And I don't think there's anyone watching this video that's sitting there thinking, I can't believe that this guy actually won. Look at this knowledge, and it's even just the subtle little things like you touched on before, Janath. But, mate, what we want to move on to now is your team selection, your starting team selection, and a bit of your drafting strategy. And you did touch on it before, but let's quickly talk about the buys. Now, these days we're dealing with early buys, mid-season buys. Some teams have one, some have two, some are sharing with one other team, some are sharing with three others. It's getting a little bit messy. So when you're putting your starting team together, how much attention are you actually paying to the buys early as well as mid-season?
Early, definitely quite a bit of attention. I would never rule out a player because of a early season buy. I think you just have to factor in that you need them to outperform similarly priced players by a few points to justify their starting selection, because over the course of the season, they need to score more points. You're obviously trying to get the most points over the season. You get around where you're covering a player with another player in the early buy round. So definitely factors in. Mostly with the early season buys, I don't mind having, quite a few players on the early season buys. It's just that I don't want to have too many in one buy is probably the main thing. And even on one line more specifically, where you're struggling to cover for them. In my winning year, I had plenty of early season buy players, and it's obviously handy to have an early look at them. The mid-season buys, I don't really have much of a look at. It's sort of, I don't even know how to it's quite difficult to check and go through your whole team and see who's on what buy and stuff. So I don't really worry about that. And my team changes a lot through the early season. Yeah, I mean, you look at your team at the start of the season compared to the mid-season buys. I mean, it's going to change so much. You can't really predict a lot of what's going to happen. So, I know people often say you don't want to have too many people on X mid-season buy, but it's not really something that I think about at all. I do look at the buys. The mid-season buys are very important, but only in sort of the 4 or 5 weeks leading up to them. And I think you can, if you're a savvy enough coach, you can maneuver and get a good playing squad each week, and the buys even out as well. The mid-season buys, like I don't really look at the buys as individual buys. It's more of a collective. You're trying to increase your rank and score the most points over the 4 weeks or 5 weeks. I don't know how many buys we have this year, but yeah, it's more of a collective buy strategy rather than looking at the mid-season buys individually. But yeah, it doesn't really weigh into my starting team too much.
Like that, mate. Couple of good points there, because there are a lot of coaches at the moment that are really stressing about the round 12 bye. Remind me, Janath, that has Port, North
Melbourne,
the Suns, and Adelaide. So some really popular plays obviously there. But you made a really good point, and this is some advice that I've been giving people over the last month as well, is the fact that very, very rarely when you look at all of your premiums in your starting team, those same blokes are there come the mid-season buys. There's carnage, form, all the rest. So I think that's fantastic advice. And another thing that I have noticed is a bit of a theme through the Winners series, that the winners have really excelled through the buys and really made up ground. I think that's something that good coaches can do. But the other theme within this is that, and I know going back to JP in the last episode, he doesn't plan too much at the start. He says, like maybe a month out, or when I'm making my trades, when I'm making up my upgrades, I'll keep the buys in mind. But it's certainly not the be-all and end-all when it comes to your starting selections. So really, really good point there, mate. Now, how about the primos? Now, there's only so many that we can fit in our side, and we need to look for value in this game. But at the same time, we need our captaincy options. We need the big guns that are going to deliver us those ceiling scores week upon week. So what's your criteria for when you're selecting a premium? Do they have to have premium history, a lot of runs on the board? What is your criteria when you're looking at starting a premium player, mate?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I think this is what with every player. I don't want to know that they have the right role. There's not many players that can score in bad. In fact, there's none. Like, I would never pick a forward pocket. There's no forward pocket that's good enough. Even if like Bontempelli played just exclusively forward pocket, he would never be in my team. So, his role is the most important. They have to have a locked in, good scoring role, which is usually either a ruckman or a distributing defender or a midfielder. Those are the 3 roles that for premiums, that's all I'm really super interested in, unless you're a bit of a unicorn like Sam Darcy. I guess he can be a premium in time if he's good enough. But yeah, role is the most important. And then scoring history. So I want to know that they can score. I like to see ceiling. I like to see what their floor score is. Have they got a high floor? Are they able to fight through tags, which perhaps Butters is not always, but maybe he will be able to overcome that. He's still young. Scoring history. Age weighs into it a bit. I don't always love picking super old guys. I like to pick guys in their prime. Historically, most high-scoring seasons are dudes that are in their prime. That usually seems to work quite well. And then like value. I'm always looking for value, even in my premiums, that whether it's, do I think they have upside for the first 6 weeks of the season, which is maybe Butters, or then, season-long value. So I want nearly all of my players in my starting squad to outdo their starting price. And by doing that, you're maximizing the amount of points you get for the limited amount in your salary cap. So, whether it's, a guy priced at 110, I want him to go at 115. If it's a guy priced at 100, I think he can go 107 to 110. I'm always looking at, trying to get on a guy that's, got a bit of scoring history, but can improve on that.
Loved it. And you did touch upon the fact that you don't mind selecting some players with early buys, but they need to score more. That's something that JP also mentioned. He calls it his 5-point rule. They need to average roughly 5 points more a game to make them an okay selection. So very similar thinking there as well, mate. Now, let's take it down level and talk about the mid-prices. Now, we're all a sucker for a bit of mid-price madness. Is there a particular type of mid-pricer that you prefer? Do you like looking at those fallen premiums? I'll give you an example, a Nick Newman type. Or are you more one for that breakout contender, looking for that bloke that can go the next level, like an Archie Roberts type this year? Or even someone that's looking to change roles like a Miles Bergman and spend a little bit more time in the midfield? Do you have a preference, mate? Or do you just look at the pros, the cons, and who presents the best value?
Yeah, it's probably more of a holistic approach, to be honest. Like I like all of those sorts of guys. Maybe role change guys are usually what I like a McKercher this year, where he had a role change halfway through last year, so he's got a different role to what he had for the entirety of last year. I get excited by like the breakout guys, like a Harvey Langford or someone like that, where you haven't really seen it before, and that's really exciting. But I sort of think it's maybe better to start without those guys and then trade into them. Especially with the price movements, like you don't have to go early on a guy like that. You can sort of wait and just have a look. I usually like fallen premiums that have done it before, like a Darcy Parish or a Hayden Young, like those sorts of guys that have had premium seasons, and then there's a clear reason why they are discounted, usually injuries or something like that. But I usually like those sorts of guys.
Beautiful, mate. And last thing before I throw it over to Janath, how about the pods? Those blokes that are in, let's just say, less than 10% of sides. Are you a bit of a sucker for a pod, or are you happy to go a little bit more vanilla and then trade in a pod during the year, maybe if you need to, or you like what they're producing?
Smarter coaches than me have said this, but I don't think you really need to go looking for pods. I think naturally your team is going to be unique. So I don't really care too much about having a vanilla looking starting team. My team was quite vanilla in the year that I won. The player that was a pod for me was like Jordan Clark, and I didn't even realize he was a pod. He just I was on him the whole preseason, and people were hot on him, and then like the season started and he was like 6% owned or something, and I was like, I didn't even realize everyone jumped off him. So I think pods they're definitely effective if you get the right ones, but I don't usually like to go looking for them necessarily. It's more just if whoever I think is going to be the better option, that's who I'll pick. And if they're 40% owned or 4% owned, it doesn't really weigh into it that much. I don't love fading like high ownership percentage guys, but going out of my way to select pods is not really something that's in my strategy.
Again, a very common theme, Janath, with all 4 winners to date, mate.
Exactly. And you don't need to chase a pod just for the sake of doing so, do you? Let's move on.
No.
Let's move on, Joven, to just talk about your in-season management and adaptability now. So take us through. I know last year for the season guide, you gave us a great written summation of how you used your boosts. Could you just bring back to the viewers about how you use the boosts in the overall scheme of your trading strategy?
Yeah, well, I think definitely I use the boosts aggressively and at the start of the season, because that's when the biggest price movements are. The start of the season is when you're going to get on guys that make the biggest price movements, and you need to be able to get as many of the high scoring, so you're going to get points, but also cash making players that you can, and get off guys that are just doing nothing for your team. So whether that's, they're just holding their price or they're not scoring very well. I sort of view that early part of the season as the most important part of your season for the cash making point of view, which is like, if you don't have cash and good team value, you just won't be able to compete with teams that have full premium, full premium value. So that's usually when I use my boosts. Last year I had to use boosts when I didn't want them. I had there was one week where there was a lot of carnage. I think Callahan and Horn Francis and someone else got injured in the same week. And I was you have to use boosts like that, so to get yourself out of emergencies. But usually I would use them to, if there's multiple good options on one week, get them in and worry about saving your trades later, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on from talking about boosts now to a little bit more about the strategy side of things in terms of captains and vice captains. What went into picking captains and vice captains for you in 2024, Joven?
Third man up.
It's definitely like matchup. Matchup is the main thing for captains, I think. Like there's a lot of good players that are capable of stealing scores on each week, but there's certain matchups that you look at the data, they tend to lead towards more stealing scores than others, and that's what I target. So yeah, favorable matchups, not just teams, but like position based matchups. So if a team allows a lot of points to Rucks, I'll hopefully have a Ruck that is playing a good team that week. And then, midfielders that aren't going to get tagged, that have favorable matchups, usually captaincy options. My vice captain, I usually like to have a bit of a, I want to bank my vice captain a lot of the time. Like I'll put that on a player that I'm pretty confident can go like a 120 plus, and I'll usually just take that. I'm not too greedy with my captaincy scores. If I can get one of those early in the week, and if you can average like 120, 130 with your captain, you're going to be held in pretty good stead, I think.
Yeah. And when we talk about captains, obviously you just talk about how you use your trades, what you look for when you're looking at captains. Can you give us a little bit of an insight, Joven, into what you look for in the rookies that you trade in? Is it job security, role, scoring ability? What is the main sort of point of difference for you when looking at rookies to trade in?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of all of the above, but yeah, it's probably scoring potential. Like I want them to have a good enough role that they can score. Like that's probably the main thing. As I said before, it's really hard for players, even if you've got good scoring pedigree, and the amount of guys that have come in that are gun scoring midfielders in the juniors, and then they get stuck on a half forward flank or a wing, and it's quite hard to score. Like even Levi Ashcroft last year, he did amazingly, and he was a massive scorer as a junior, and he was just on a wing. So yeah, it's more role. You want to have a good role, and then job security is probably next. You don't want guys that are going to be in for 2 weeks and then out of the side again. That's just you're not going to make a lot of money out of those guys. So yeah, those are probably the main 2 factors.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a hypothetical, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Same priced players. One is 117K, mid only, can average 80 on a good day, poor job security. Or the other is 117K, def mid, averages 40 on a good day, has decent job security, but is a lockdown small defender. Which way would you lean?
I'd probably go the first option. I'm not really interested in guy that averages 40. He's not gonna move the needle much for me. Those slow burns are, there's a place for them, but they end up rotting a bit in your side, and they might make a guy like Finn O'Sullivan last year. Like if you hold on to them for too long, I mean, he made a bit of money in the end, but it's sort of just killing. Yeah, when you could have a guy that is there. Even if that 80 guy, the guy that can go 80, even if he only plays like 4 games and then he gets 2 price rises, and then you can get on the next guy rather than someone that's going to be hard to move on. And, I won't trade him this week because he's still playing. He's a live player, but he's not really helping you improve your team a lot.
I feel like this situation will come across a lot this year with the 5 on the bench. You see players get managed in game, especially the rookies. So we're going to be in a situation where we probably have to pick one of job security or scoring potential. And it may not always work. And Henry Hustwaite last year was a great example of that. Can score really well on his day, but had no job security whatsoever. So it's a really interesting point you raised there, Joven. And before we move on to the next section, I guess the last sort of question which I had here was, were there players that you avoided in your starting team in 2024, knowing full well that you want them in later in the season, like popular players that you sort of predicted would become fallen premiums?
No one that I really predicted would be a fallen premium per se. I think it's, usually those things are a bit hard to predict. Like, they fall for certain reasons. There might be an injury affected game, or, you know, they start off in a strange position because they're carrying something through the preseason and they get themselves fit. So yeah, there's definitely players that I always have in mind that I would target because I think that they're going to be top of their line, and I haven't started them just for value reasons. But yeah, I think it's a little bit hard and presumptuous to assume that certain players are going to be fallen premiums. I guess maybe the only scenario is like the Ruckman this year is that, I probably think a few of those guys are going to fall. But yeah, no one that I really usually go into the season thinking is going to be a fallen premium. It just usually shakes out and you get some strange ones, and then they end up in your team.
I guess a better way to phrase that question is, when you are picking off the fallen premiums, do you go into it with the mindset of they're going to be in the best 22, hypothetical best 22 players across the field? Or if someone like a Chad Warner presents themselves at 400K, they're probably not going to be a top 6 player, but they can bridge the gap to a top 6 player in their line. Like, where do you prefer to go in terms of targeting your fallen premiums, Joven?
Yeah, probably more the second one. Like, I'll just go value usually, and then because then I think that sets you up for the next week. I guess if there's a fallen premium guy that is going to be best 22, that's the best case scenario, value, and you think they're going to score in line with the top players, then that's obviously the ideal scenario. But otherwise, like, I wouldn't rather, someone drops like 50K and then you get on them and then you miss a week of upgrading. I'd rather just get a guy that's a little bit cheaper, and then I can keep upgrading and improving my team as a whole.
Yeah. Awesome, Joven. That was so comprehensive. DR, do you have anything you want to add in terms of in-season management?
I don't think so, mate. I do have a couple now on mindset and psychological factors. And again, I think you've already touched a little bit on this, mate. But when we were talking to JP, people could not believe how laid back he was for a previous winner. Going into this year, what sort of mindset are you going to approach a season with? Are you going to take more of that laid back approach, or are you going to continue to really analyze things and dive deep into the data? Are you leaning one way or the other, mate?
I think I'd actually like to take a bit more of the laid back approach. In the year that I won, it was probably the least amount of research and like thinking that I'd done in the preseason compared to other years. Like leading up to that, I'd always done like big spreadsheets and, trying to do lots of data and, how much percentage I think they're going to increase, and then comparing lots of players. And I probably went a little bit back towards that last year, but the game is so like, you can't really just put in a formula and it spits out the winning team. Maybe Selby had that once upon a time. I don't know how he won 2 in a row. He must have had something like that. But I think a lot of the time it's probably better if you just, just trust your gut a little bit. And I guess not overthinking certainly helped me in my winning year. And then, you have to think about it a lot, but probably just taking a bit more of a laid back approach is the way I'd like to go this year. Still, still getting as much information as I can, but not really stressing about it. At the end of the day, a lot of things are out of your control. So you just do the best of what you can.
Yeah, and it's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it? And I think for lots of us, and I'll put myself in this boat, I just love the game of Supercoach. I love listening to other people. I love talking about the game. So I do consume a fair bit of content myself when I've got the time, when I'm not obviously making it with the boys. But I'm just a big footy fan, and sometimes it is hard to get away from overthinking things. I can definitely put my hand up for that one, mate. But hopefully a bit more of a laid back way of going about things this year. And do you have a bit of a routine during the season? I know that when you were right up there, you really tried to, manage those emotional highs and the emotional lows. Do you have a bit of a routine during the week so you're not overthinking things and stressing out too much?
Not particularly. I guess more just like lifestyle routines. Like, when I was up the top, I was doing a fair bit of like breath work and like meditation. I think that's, can be helpful for anyone. Yeah, if you want to do a bit of that. manifesting and all that sort of thing is helpful. I was doing a fair bit of that when I was up the top, and I think that can be helpful not just in Supercoach but in general life. Looking after your mental health is always a big positive. In terms of routines throughout the week, I usually just the first few days I won't really make any moves in my team. I won't do like rage trades or anything like that. I'll just sort of sit back and take in the content, listen to the content, and go back over the games, have a bit of a think about them. And then, once teams start coming out on Wednesday, the first teams, and then, sort of having Wednesday and Thursday, you want to be planning your trades and having sort of an idea of what you want to do with loopholes and whatnot throughout the weekend. But, not really any rigid routine throughout the week.
Love it. And you talked about no rage trading. Literally the second that the app opens, there's always someone I'll go, see you later, son. I cannot wait for it to open and just sack someone straight away.
There's
that's
nothing
had a poor
better
weekend.
than that. They gotta know that they're on edge. So you gotta give them the good old Cook reality check.
Exactly
and,
right.
bring them
These
back
decisions aren't always final. Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. You just need to give them a bit of a rocket. Just put them on notice, I say, Janath. Anything else? Do you want to get more into the mind of this great man, or time to move on, buddy?
I guess the thing for Joven is when you're I guess the question I had, but you touched on it a lot earlier. When you come in second and you got all these variables in place, what are they doing? What's happening here? Did you find it hard, Joven, to sort of focus simply on your own team and not worry too much about what's going on around you? Or did you really care about what players the other teams had and you were sort of working against them in that way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, I think you have to play it the second way. It turned into a different game. Like, it's a very unique situation to be in, and I hope everyone gets to experience this one day. But it turns into a different style of game where all of a sudden you've gone from competing against 170,000 and just trying to work on your own team, really, because you can't focus on 170,000 different teams. You just really focus on your own team. And then once you get up the top, you have to play it that you're really just against the other players around you. And that's especially when it gets later in the season. I wouldn't do that if I was in the top 10 at, say, round 10. There's still so long to go. But if there's only sort of 7 weeks left in the season, and you're going to be up the pointy, and then you start looking at how am I going to get better than these people, because it does become about winning at that stage. I don't think when you're playing just usually, you shouldn't even really consider winning. It's so unlikely. You need a lot to go right. But when you're up the top, certainly you start to look at the other teams, and I did a lot of that in terms of trying to get ways that I could catch up and ways that I could hold points in different positions over other coaches. So, it's a really unique situation, but a very fun one when you get to play the game that way.
I guess you've touched on a little bit, Joven, into the next point. Sort of, we've talked about 2024, your magical year. We talked about 2025. Now looking into 2026, if you had to give a couple of pieces of advice to anyone that's up the pointy end of the year, a pointy end at the end of the season, apart from sort of the fact you just mentioned, like you're working against other people, what other advice would you give?
Probably the main piece of advice is just try and enjoy it as much as you can. Like, it's a very unique situation to be in, and the chances are you're probably not going to have a whole lot of opportunities up the top. A few coaches are lucky enough to be really up the pointy end multiple times. But, I think it's such a unique blessing and, fun thing to be up the top of the leaderboard. So just try and enjoy it as much as you can, which is, easier said than done. I don't know about really any other advice for being up the top. Just, I guess, keep, playing your own game. Don't try and, do things that you wouldn't normally do. Even when I was comparing my team towards other teams, I was still going through my normal process of, trying to find value and, maximize my points over the next, however many weeks. So, I guess that would be my advice.
Awesome, Joven. Let's talk a little bit about 2026. So firstly, have you done much planning or given much thought into your side for this year so far?
Oh, I've had a few drafts. It sort of changes when you hear a bit of information. Like, every couple of days you might hear a new thing and switch some things around. But yeah, more of just like, I'm not too set on any particular player. There's a few guys that I'm pretty confident that I'll start with, but yeah, mostly just having keeping all the information in the back of my mind and, different combinations is where I'm at the moment, especially before we see preseason games and opening round.
Yeah. If you were to forecast forward, Joven, who do you think's going to be the top 3 in each of the lines?
Here we go. Notepads out.
There's definitely some interesting. In defense, probably it's very hard to go past Manganine Miller. I think he'll be the top again. I like Connor Rosie. People are pretty into him. Lockie Whitfield, I think, will be around the mark. And then some other guys. I'm quite hot on Christian Salem from the Demons.
Salem.
I think he could have a pretty good year. Yep. I think there's a fair bit of ball to go around that Demons backline. Dowie out opens up more kick-ins. Stephen May, we're not exactly sure what's happening there. So yeah, there's a bit of upside in Salem, which is someone that hasn't maybe been talked about so much. Even like a Jordan Clark, I think the new rules will favour him. But yeah, I guess those sorts of guys. In the midfield,
one thing on Clark, he needs to step out of the goal square when he's taking kick-ins. He notoriously bad last night. Did not step out of the goal square. So,
Come on, Geordie.
Come on, Geordie.
I guess the stats don't matter too much in the Origin game. So
yeah, that's right.
Then going on to the midfield. So I think it'll be pretty hard to dethrone Bont as the top midfielder. And then I think the next couple of guys are those sort of like transition-based scorers. So I can see guys like Dacos, I think, is super suited. We saw last night, even though it's Origin, so you don't want to take too much out of it. But, suits those hard-running players. Dacos. Butters can pop up in space. I think he'll be around the mark. Like an Errol Goulden, quite interested in. Players like that. Finn Callahan, no reason he can't. Probably the main thing is like, with Tom Green going down, maybe he gets a bit more attention. That's probably the one thing I'm interested in. And that's something to see. We're not going to see in the preseason, at least, teams tagging him, but he's probably good enough that, he's a hard runner and he, I think he almost has the avenues to fight through a tag. Like he tackled quite well last year. He's got a bit of that inside-outside mix. If he gets tagged, he can go a bit more on the inside. But I certainly like it if the game really opens up like the rules suggest it might. And a handball receive guy, he's a massive handball receive guy. And a bit more ball to go around for him with Tom Green going down, unfortunately. So, I'm pretty interested in Callahan. If he didn't have that early bye, probably be pretty confident in starting.
Awesome, Joven. I think we're on the same page there, DR, about all of those names.
Yes,
aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now let's hear your Rucks, Joven. I'm more interested not in the names, but in the order you have them in.
Yeah, well, I think the Rucks are very difficult to pick, to be honest. I sort of think Gawn will still probably be around the mark as the number one just because he is not going to share. I think there's teams that will opt for the 2 ruck sharing strategy, and it's I guess the fall off will come eventually for Gawn, but I sort of thought he was going to regress a bit last year and he just got better. So I don't know. I think the rules don't really seem to me like they'll suit him very much in terms of, he likes to sit long down the line and harder to get to more stoppages and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see how we go, but still think he's a good enough player. He's smart. He'll adapt. He scores in different ways. So pretty confident in him. And then the next guys, I'm pretty hot on like a Tim English. I think these rules really do suit Tim English. Like you think about who the game is being tailored towards. It's these ruckmen that run and jump. And Tim English is someone that suffered heavily. He was one of the top scoring rucks a few years ago, and then they sort of changed the rules where he can wrestle a bit more in the ruck, and that reduced his scoring. And that was like a preseason where he didn't get to he had an injury and he didn't get to train properly with the new rules, and then hasn't been able to quite get back to, I think he averaged 120 plus in his real breakout year. So I think with these jumping ruck rules, he's the typical jumping ruck. Obviously Jackson I mentioned before. If he's playing ruck, I think he can be up there. As a midfield, I'm not sure he can go at the same levels of those other top rucks, and then maybe a Grundy and then Sherry. Sort of find it really hard to rank these guys. I'm pretty cold on Sherry despite the early run. I just think these rules, it seems like that's the exact type of ruckman that, they're trying to disadvantage. He's an excellent player, and I love Sherry. He was amazing for me when I won, but I just wonder about these new rules. It sort of seems like everything's going against him with the way the game's trending, and they want it to open up. He's like the classic tap and wrap ruckman, taps it down and then tackles, gets a repeat stoppage. That's what they're trying to remove from the game. So I don't know, just a few less stoppages per game, and then it just makes a bit harder for him to score because he is very stoppage based with his scoring.
Yeah.
That's a great job because it is so hard to predict. I think that's one of the hardest questions you can be asked this preseason, to rate rucks. I find it near on impossible. So I'm more just looking back to historical data, and my view, Joven, myself, is I've always felt like it's easier to start up and then go down if you need to. So if I start, just say, for example, the big combo in the Gorn and the Sherry, if things aren't looking too rosy with them, at least I feel I'm able to downgrade to anyone I want. But that's going to be a huge, huge watch. One of the biggest watches I think we'll have in the preseason, mate. All right. How about the forwards? Finish off for us, mate, with your forward rankings.
Geez, slim pickings down here, isn't it? Apart from Harry Sheasel, who I think is going to be excellent. There's no reason he shouldn't be. And I think these new rules will suit him as well. I think he's going to be awesome. Honestly, the next few guys, I can see Sam Flanders pushing the mark of this next
Absolutely.
group. Based on his previous scoring, he was an absolute jet in 2024, and I owned him for all of that year. He was incredible. So I can definitely see him being around there. And then the next couple of guys, I think maybe a Christian Petrarca and a Sam Darcy. I think Petrarca, especially with his early run, is someone that interests me. He's got a couple of favourable matchups to start the season, which is nice. I think he gets, just playing in a better team will help him. And then Sam Darcy, like we saw at times last year, looks like one of the best players in Supercoach, and then sort of had a bit of ups and downs. He's only going to improve with age, he's going to get a bit more mature and I guess put on a little bit more size, figure out what works for him in terms of scoring. Maybe they rely on him a bit more as a chop out ruckman around the ground with the new rules. So I like those guys.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Awesome,
I really
Joven.
like Darcy.
Oh,
One thing,
good.
sorry, Janath, that Maddie touched on from inside the kennel is that Norton's playing a very unselfish game as well, and actually opening things up for Darcy, which I think is another real positive to the Darcy selection. I'd love to start him. Not sure if I can at the moment, but
there's
as an
two
upgrade
sides to it,
target,
isn't it?
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
There's two sides to the Darcy. I think you've got the transition. He should get more one-on-one ball, but then, I know it was only Origin, and I know that Sam Taylor's one of the best defenders in the league, but it just goes to show how much he can get blanketed out of the game if the ball delivery isn't great. And he had the best midfield you could ever put together for the Victorians, right? And he still couldn't get the marks that you would want to get out of key forward to bump that score.
How's
So
that?
that's my reservation.
Just missed that. That was
missed it.
God. Yeah, just missed it. Yeah, just missed it. But
Joven, you have been absolutely brilliant, mate. DR, if we want to get Joven on for a team reveal, now we did say 1 like before, but if Joven's not going to say something, I reckon you've got to put a benchmark out there. How many likes, DR, do we need to get on this video for Joven to come on and do another exclusive team reveal on the Swordplay channel?
Well, we did 100 for Blake, absolute goat. So I think we need to now up things, Janath.
Yeah,
I reckon 150. What do you reckon? 150.
150.
We'll add another 50 on.
Joven?
We can get 150. I reckon that would be a decent number.
Yeah,
Joven,
it's probably silly. I forgot, setting the 1 like goal. We want to get as many likes as we can. So, yeah, 150 likes. So that'll do it.
Now, I will say, I did get some mates from the hospital to like the Blake video as well. So I hope we don't have any dire straits, but we should be looking good for 150, guys. So 150 likes on this video, not views, hopefully more than 150 views. 150 likes, and we'll get Joven to also do an exclusive team reveal. Remember, you can use the code WINNER24 to get 10% off our season guide. The season guide will be releasing next Saturday, the 21st, or this Saturday when you're listening to this, the 21st of February. So get 10% off, help support Joven. And before we wrap up, mate, I'm just going to sort of give a little summary as to what you took out of it. So you've come, you haven't quite climbed the mountain before 2024, but you did get close into the top 1K. So if anyone's out there, you get into the top 1K repeatedly, it's more so a mindset change in terms of becoming a bit looser with your team, not being so rigid, all of that. In preseason, focus on all players and then cull, as opposed to focus on a small minority and then branching out. You love a podcast, Joven. I think that's a big difference to the other threes, that I don't think the other 3 quite like to podcast as much as you. But what you guys do all share in common is a number of things. You love to save a trade to the end. You love the eye test. And also, I think the big thing is the way in which you adapt to the ever-evolving game with how you use your boosts. Your year, the year 1, Joven, I think was the first year the boosts were in the game, if I'm not mistaken. So really learning on the run, and everything you talk about with Tristan sharing all of that, mate, absolutely vital information, because it gives us a good insight into what's ticking through your mind. Joven, we can't thank you enough for coming on to the 4th episode of the GOAT series. DR, what more can we say?
What a way to wrap things up. Do you know what? I'm convinced now that part of the criteria for winning the game is to be just a ripping person, just a beautiful human. I just want to give a massive shout out to M, aka Supercoach Mama, who had taken a bit of a step away from the game for a little while, but was generous enough to come on, give us her time, and now I think she's found the bug again, which is very, very exciting to be getting right back into the community. Obviously, our great friend JP, who we will be catching up with for a couple of cold ones in the preseason, which we're really looking forward to. Just a real laid-back approach, and a little bit of a rascal at times is JP, which is why I absolutely love the great man. Then Blake, the man, the myth. No one's heard or seen from this man, and he's generous enough to come onto the channel as well, show his beautiful face, and drop some absolute gold in our last episode. And to finish off, our great mate, who also obviously featured last year,
Joven,
a big part of our community, just an amazing, amazing person is Joven. And I cannot believe how young you are. Your knowledge and wisdom is that of someone in their late 70s, I think, mate. And that's an absolute compliment to you. So thank you very much again for coming on, my friend. It's been an absolute blast.
No problem, lads. It's been a pleasure. I always love chatting Supercoach and just general philosophies of the game. And hopefully the listeners can take, however much they like out of this and improve their own Supercoach knowledge. And everyone has a fun season this year. That's the best part about playing Supercoach, is that it's fun. It lets you watch the games with a bit of different invested interest. And it's always fun puzzle to solve week to week about what to do with your team. So good luck to everyone over the coming weeks and throughout the season.
Yeah, I think one quick thing though, I want to finish off with a proverb. I think this series has been so good for multiple reasons, but a proverb I really enjoy is give a man a fish and you can feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish and you can feed him for a lifetime. I think this GOAT series has just given so many grounding principles across all 4 years, and it's just not said how we can win necessarily. It's said how we can best position ourselves to win. And I think that's the thing we can take out, and that you can always learn. Joven, that was one of the big takeaways that I got from you as well, is your head's not wobbling too much. You're still willing to learn. Even if you've climbed the mountain, you want to climb that mountain again, and you're going to continue to evolve. So all the best for this year, mate. They are brilliant series, and we're going to have plenty more content coming out, obviously with the team reveals, but plenty more preseason content before the real games kick off as well. So we'll leave it there, lads. Hope you guys all have a great week, and yeah, peace out.
Peace.
Cheers.